So, Nancy Pelosi is saying perhaps we should look into universal basic income. Now, stick with me, please, because we're going to cover a lot of information. So, universal basic income. In order to understand it, we need to know what universal basic income is, and at least what the top 3 pros and cons of universal basic income is. So, we're going to be covering a lot of information here today on this. So, please stick with me to the end, and I hope it will be as informative for you as it was for me. We're going to go into this from the standpoint of, okay, I'm going to say that I know nothing about universal basic income and go into this with perhaps this is the right time, and give points on why I think it is and maybe it isn't as we go. Pelosi says basically that universal basic income is worthy of attention. On Monday, she addressed Congress and said, the country is paralyzed by the coronavirus pandemic. Now, I take a little issue with the phrase that the country is paralyzed by the coronavirus pandemic. Hear me out. I believe the country is paralyzed by choices. I seriously do. So I begged and pleaded and went to the hospital and got limited release for work, so that way I could go back to work and go back to work early. The surgeon didn't want me to work, but I made the choice to go back to work, and it's pretty busy. We are short-handed, one of the reasons I went back to work, because my field is responsible for helping keep food going and the hospitals running and things like that. And so I thought it was very important, and it was listed as essential, so I said, okay, it's important. We keep the hospital morgues running smoothly. We can't have those backing up. We keep the hospital automated systems running, the computer rooms running. We help keep the food trucks running. We help put food on American tables. And right now that's a very important thing, or at least I believe it's important. And that's a choice. So I believe the phrase should be, while parts of the country choose to remain paralyzed, other parts are beginning to wake up. Let's see what works, what is operational, and what needs attention, the California Democrat said in an interview with MSNBC. So, universal basic income really kind of became popular with Andrew Yang during this election year and Bernie Sanders. They really don't give very much credit. In fact, they give no credit to Bernie Sanders for bringing the popularity of a universal basic income into the American household. But let's give credit where credit is due. Bernie Sanders did have quite a bit to do with bringing it to the mainstream. So what is universal basic income? Well, basically, in a nutshell, it's the government saying that each family gets a certain amount of money each month based upon whatever criteria they decide. And it's supposed to help cover the cost of living and things like that. Interesting. So the government is going to dole out, let's pick a low number, $1,000 a month. I believe it'd probably be more, but, let's pick a number. But where does that $1,000 a month come from? It's got to come from somewhere. So, Procon.org is a really wonderful site if you want to know a site to go to in case you want to know the pros and cons of pretty much anything and you don't know and you're like, what are the pros and cons? So on the green is going to be the pros, and in the kind of, I think it's supposed to be red, but it's more pinkish purplish, on the right is the cons. So, pro number 1. Universal basic income reduces poverty and income inequality and improves health. In 1981, Alaska was ranked 30 out of 50 states on income inequality. By 2015, the state had jumped to number 2. Alaska's improvement in income equality is largely attributed to the implementation of its UBI program starting in 1976, the Alaska Permanent Fund, which I should be, since I was born in Alaska, able to get, but for some reason I am not, and maybe I should look into that. But Namibia's UBI program, the Basic Income Grant, trialed in 2007 to 2012, reduced household poverty rates from 76% of residents before the trial started to 37% after 1 year. Child malnutrition rates also fell from 42% to 17% in 6 months. Wow. Some pretty good numbers on the pro side for universal basic income so far. I mean, they all sound really good. And it is pretty much all positive stuff. Sounds good. Scott Santon's founding member of the Economic Security Project says that a UBI set at $1,000 per adult per month. $1,000 per adult per month? Wow, man. When I was living on the streets, if you'd have given me $1,000 a month, I would have been able to live really well. I mean really well. And $300 per child per month would eradicate U.S. poverty entirely. No, it would not eradicate U.S. poverty entirely because you're forgetting choice. Some people are going to take that money and do things with it that maybe perhaps they shouldn't be doing and live in poverty. Some people, in fact, are going to take that money and do bad things with it and kill themselves. It's just human nature. It's history. It's going to happen. Okay? Anybody who knows somebody who has a gambling problem, a drinking problem, a drug problem, knows exactly what I'm saying. All right? If you had a heroin addict next door and you knew he was a heroin addict, would you give him $1,000 a month? No, you'd probably kill him because he'd buy $1,000 worth of heroin and overdose. Not saying you will. I'm saying most likely, statistically, the math is in my favor on that. So it wouldn't eliminate U.S. poverty entirely. People have choices here. Kenya has a UBI trial. I didn't even know Kenya had a UBI trial. That is amazing. Has reportedly led to increased happiness and life satisfaction and to reduced stress and depression. So, India, Manitoba, Canada. So one thing that I'm kind of noticing here is none of these countries is particularly successful as far as like a country. As far as like being a rich country. Now, what country is successful as far as being a rich country? Well, there is only one. The United States. No other country comes even close to the United States. Now, they will say China is second. Yeah, a distant second. Are they catching up fast? Abso-frickin-lutely. But it's still a way distant second. Just pointing that out. Just saying. Not saying it means anything, but saying, hey, you know, that's something to take into effect that, interestingly enough, none of these countries, I mean, when I think of a rich country that I'd like to move to and live in a nice, beautiful house, I sure as heck don't think of Kenya or Namibia. Let's go to the con. Universal basic income takes money from the poor and gives it to everyone, increasing poverty and depriving the poor of needed, targeted support. And not only that, it brings down people, you have a ceiling. You talk about the glass ceiling, well, you're going to have a glass ceiling. It takes money from people who are successful and work hard, and it pulls away from the drive to work hard. Why has Kenya's happiness and life satisfaction and reduced stress because of the UBI? Because now they don't have to work. They can sit at home and do nothing, but now the country as a whole isn't producing anything. Because right now, we've got people that I know that can be going back to work right now, but they choose not to because they're smarter than me. Not knocking them in a bit. I'm jealous. Sitting at home, collecting unemployment and making more money. Making more money sitting at home doing nothing. And I'm out there sweating and in the heat and freezing in the freezing cold and then coming back out into the freaking 90-degree heat and getting paid less than someone sitting at home playing Xbox, PlayStation, and whatever else. Wow. And I can't blame him, man. I cannot blame him. Kind of reduces the drive to be productive. Why would you? You give me $2,000 a week to sit at home and do nothing? Yeah, man. I'm going to sit at home and do nothing. Not a damn thing am I going to do. Poor people face a variety of hardships that are addressed with existing anti-poverty measures such as food stamps, medical aid, and child assistance programs. Yes, and it's based upon your poverty level, which is why it's kind of a good program. UBI programs often use funds targeting the poor for distribution to everyone in society, according to Robert Greenstein, president of the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. So rather than helping and targeting those most in need, you spread it out. You got toast, and you've only got a little bit of jam. And that one corner of the toast is so dry, it needs more jam than every other place, but you can't. You got to spread it evenly and deal with the dryness. I know, that's a horrible analogy, but I kind of just want toast with butter and jam. Anyways, where were we? Oh yes, according to Robert Greenstein, president of the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, if you take the dollars targeted on people in the bottom fifth or 2/5 of the population and convert them into universal payments to people all the way up the income scale, you're redistributing income upward. That would increase poverty and inequality rather than reduce them. Wonderful point. Yeah, wonderful point. If you have things targeting the poor, but the poorest of the poor don't get it, it's like you've only covered a certain amount of the ruts. I can picture it in my head, the perfect analogy, and I can't spit it out because I don't know if you'll understand it. Picture a road and you're looking at it sideways and you've got a bunch of ruts, a bunch of dips in the road that you need to cover. You've only got a certain amount of material, but some of these ruts are deeper than others. So you take this thing and you real quick smooth it across the entire road, because that's all the material you have. Well, some of those ruts are still going to have divots in them. Some of those poor people are still going to need more help because they needed more help than the next person down the line, but because everything's evenly distributed, they don't get the help they need, the targeted help that they need. We'll go to Pro 2. UBI leads to positive job growth and lower school dropout rates. School dropout rates. How does it lower school dropout rates? What's the connection? The guarantee of UBI protects people from sluggish wage growth, low wages, and the lack of job security caused by the effects of the growing gig economy, such as Uber, Lyft driving short-term contracts and increasing automation in the workplace. I don't believe that you're going to, in any way, shape, or form, stop automation in the workplace. It's going to happen. UBIs also enable people to stay in school longer and participate in training to improve skills or learn a trade. Yeah, because they don't get out into the workforce until later. Because they don't have to. There's no push. There's no nothing. Researchers from the Roosevelt Institute created 3 models for U.S. implementation of UBI and found that under all scenarios, UBI would grow the economy, increasing output. I don't believe it would increase output. I just don't. They keep forgetting about human nature, human choice. You listening right now, you have a choice. You can slave away for 10, 11, 12 hours a day and come home with $1,000 a week, $1,500 a week, $1,200 a week, whatever, $800, $700. I think in my area, the average, believe it or not, is about $800 a week. Probably on the higher end of average, actually. Or you can stay at home, do nothing, and make about the same. The smart choice? Stay home. Do nothing. The unselfish choice? Go to work. Slave away. Produce something. I don't know how it's going to increase output. Increase employment, prices, and wages. Yeah. It'll increase prices, for sure. Since implementation of the Alaska Permanent Fund, the increased purchasing power of UBI recipients has resulted in 10,000 additional jobs for the state. And let me tell you something. I was born in Alaska. I have lived in Alaska. And let me tell you something. Everything is expensive in Alaska. It's expensive there. Uganda's UBI trial, the Youth Opportunities Program, enabled participants to invest in skills training as well as tools and materials, resulting in an increase of business assets by 57%, work hours by 17%, and earnings by 38%. I could see how that would work, especially if you're letting them invest in tools and letting them have the tools that they need. Okay, that would increase business assets because now you've got people, a bigger pool of people trained. However, there's a longer period of time between you being able to collect from people from this trained pool because they're being trained. So it takes longer to get them into the job market. The Canadian Minecomb trial in the 1970s found that participants of the trial were more likely to complete high school than counterparts not involved in the trial. Yeah. Reason for that is because you're going to high school, your family's suffering, and you drop out and you get a job to help your family out. So, good on that. But what is the con on that? UBI removes the incentive to work. Yes, it does. Adversely affecting the economy and leading to a labor and skills shortage. Yes. Which, believe it or not, I'm all for, because if everybody wants to sit at home and I've got licenses and certificates and the skills and the knowledge and there's less of us, I'm more valuable. You want me? All right. Rather than $96 an hour, I'm going to charge $180 an hour. Take it or leave it. And it would all be in my favor. And guess what? That means that that store is going to raise their prices as well. But what do I care? I don't care if the store raises their prices and you can't afford the food. I'm getting paid, right? I don't care. What do I care? Why should I care? Oh, well, that's right. Because we're all Americans and we're all in this together, and everything that we all do affects everybody else down the line. If every single one of you, imagine this, you going to work and there's no other employees, but yet you still got to work. And you got to do everybody's work because everybody else is at home collecting money, doing nothing. Because why would you go to work and slave away when you can sit at home and... If I told you right now that I would give you $2,000 a week to sit at home and do nothing, would you go to work or would you say, you know, Paramount? Pay up, man. You'd want me to pay up. All the free time, you could learn new skills, learn new trades, you'd get $2,000 a week, you could travel, you could go on vacation, not a care in the world. So why would you go to work? Where's the motivation? Earned income motivates people to work, to be successful, to cooperate with colleagues, and to gain skills. However, if we pay people unconditionally to do nothing, which is happening right now, so I can tell you from personal experience that people will not go to work because they're not, even though I know they can. You know, in several different fields I know people that can, but they're smarter than I am. I'm not knocking them one bit. I'm telling them, you guys are smart. You guys are smart. If we pay people unconditionally to do nothing, they will do nothing. That's right. You build it, and they will come. You pay them, and they will stay. And this leads to a less effective economy, says Charles, whatever the heck his last name is, professor of international economics at the Graduate Institute in Geneva, Switzerland. Yes, as I'd said before, all these countries that have universal basic income, when you think of them, they're not like the top-notch countries that you would think of like, yeah, that's where I want to retire because that's where all the rich stuff is. If you had all the money in the world and you wanted to be surrounded by the best of the best and things like that, generally, you'd come to the United States. There's a reason, people, that the United States is the world's only superpower. And we've done it in a short period of time, a couple hundred years. We came from nothing, fought for our freedom, tried the most successful experiment, which was capitalism. And it worked. And capitalism is what propelled us. Capitalism. Imagine that. Interesting. Money makes the world go round, right? Well, if money makes the world go round, then that means capitalism is the best experiment. Economist Alison Schrager, PhD, says that a strong economy relies on people being motivated to work and work hard. And in order to and Americans are some of the hardest working people. You know, we work the most hours out of almost anybody else. We are so productive. Why? Because that's our motivation. Because if you don't produce something here in the United States, you don't get nothing. You can be on food stamps and little handouts here and there like I've been on. And I can make fun of those things because I've been on them. So according to social justice law, I'm allowed to talk about that because I've been homeless. I've eaten out of the dumpsters. I've been on food stamps. The only difference is I used them for what they were for, which was a stepping stone to get to a better place. And once I got to a better place, I dropped them like a sack of hot potatoes. Let's go to Pro 3. I know you guys are probably yawning by now. UBI guarantees income for non-working parents and caregivers, thus empowering important unpaid roles, especially for women. Stop! No. Get off it. Staying at home is not the hardest job in the world like people say it is. Okay? Trust me. You do a little bit of hours of housework here, help the kids an hour there, watch your TV for a couple hours, do some cooking. Okay, yeah. I'll switch positions, all right? I'll stay at home. I'll care for the kids. I won't care for any of the bills. You can go out there. You can slave away. You can work 12, 13, 14, 15 hours a day in a dangerous job that has proven itself to be dangerous. That is sweaty, that is nasty, that is hot, that is cold, that is demanding both physically and mentally, and you come home and then I'll take your money and we'll see how happy that makes you. No, come on, get off it. You shouldn't be paid for doing housework. That's just something that you do because it's what needs to be done. We'll go to Con 3. UBI is too expensive. I know, because we're getting long. UBI is too expensive. Yes, where does the frickin' money come from? Y Combinator, a startup incubator, is going to run a UBI trial in Oakland, California, providing individual participants with $1,000 to $2,000 a month. A $2,000 a month per head household UBI would cost an estimated $2.275 trillion annually. It would be the equivalent of this massive bailout that we've got annually. Okay. Now, when money is involved, we know how politicians get. With this massive bailout, everybody wanted their policies snuck in. Well, we only want 10 million here. You know, it was like half-baked when he's coming out with the herb and the doctor's giving him a little bit, and he's like, oh, grabbing some and sticking in his pocket. Everybody's going to reach out and try to get their stuff done. And imagine that happening annually. Every year having to hear about, oh, well, they snuck this policy in there, and they snuck that policy in there, and this and that, and this and that. Oh, my gosh. Some of this cost could be offset by eliminating federal, state, and local assistance programs. However, by Joffe's calculations, these offsets total only $810 billion, leaving a net budgetary cost of over $1.4 trillion for a universal basic income program. And we don't have the infrastructure for it to begin with, so it would cost more than that, because we'd have to change the infrastructure. The UBI trial in Finland provides participants with $560, $673 in the United States, a month for 2 years. Very nice. At least it's only for 2 years. Ika Kakoranta, MS Chief Economist for the Central Organization of Finnish Trade Unions, SAC. What a beautiful name. SAC. Sounds like you're getting fired rather than hired. Says Finland's UBI model is impossibly expensive since it would increase the government deficit by about 5% of GDP. Ooh, 5% of GDP is huge, 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 huge. Where's the money come from? It's got to come from somewhere because, let's face it, nothing is free. All right. I know your eyes are glazed over, you're yawning, you're champs for sticking through. I appreciate it, but I keep saying that we're headed towards these things, and then right around the corner are these things that pop up that kind of prove what I'm saying true, and I feel sometimes like I'm a fortune teller yelling from the mountaintops, and nobody's hearing me because YouTube stifles every gosh darn thing I put out. But it is out there. Educate yourselves. And just educate yourselves. I'm dog tired, man. I'm going to take a nap. I love you guys. I'll inform you guys to the best of my ability, no matter how tired I am. And discuss this. And I'll see you on the next one.